A very warm good afternoon to one and all gathered. Myself, Dida Mariam George, Assistant Professor from Department of Commerce, is privileged to handle today's session. On behalf of Saintgits College of Applied Sciences, I cordially welcome you all to the 5th day of National Webinar Series, India's Economic Reforms, a Boon or Bane, organized by Department of Corporate Economics and Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Saintgits College of Applied Sciences to commemorate the 30th anniversary of India's economic reforms. Eminent resource persons shall be sharing their ideas and views in this webinar series with us from 7th August to 17th August. The esteemed speaker for the upcoming session is Padma Vibhushan Dr. Montek Singh Alwalia, economist and former Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission, Government of India. As part of webinar series, along with the knowledge sharing sessions, a virtual national level elocution competition for students has also been organized on each day of the series. The prizes for the competition are sponsored by South Indian Bank. Now, it is time to reveal the winner of Day 4 elocution competition. With immense pleasure, we announce the winner for the day is none other than Mr. Noel Tharagan Ranjit, Federal Institute of Science and Technology. Please note that there will be a question and answer session after the keynote address. Kindly share the questions in the chat box of Zoom or YouTube. We shall address the posted question in the Q&A session. Further, the link for the feedback form will be shared at the end of the session. Participants are requested to fill the same. May I now invite Dr. K.K. John, Principal, Saintgits College of Applied Sciences, for the welcome address.
Jairam Ramesh, Honorable Member of Parliament.
Yeah, can you hear?
Respected Dr. V.K. Mathews, Director, Saintgits Group of Professional Institutions, Sri Thomas T. John, Executive Chairman, Engineer Pinnus George, members of the Governing Board, Associate Professor M.C. Joseph, my faculty colleagues, colleagues from other colleges and universities, students from various colleges. Good afternoon. This is the 5th session of the National Webinar Series organized by the Department of Corporate Economics and IQAC of Saintgits College of Applied Sciences. The purpose of this webinar series was to analyze the impact of new economic reforms that we launched in 1991. What are the advantages and challenges ahead? This was the general theme of this webinar series. Eminent speakers like Sri Jairam Ramesh, Honorable Member of Parliament, Dr. T.M. Thomas Isaac, former Minister for Finance, Government of Kerala, Dr. K.G. Joseph, Director, Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, Sri Murali Ramakrishnan, Managing Director of South Indian Bank, were the resource persons in the previous sessions. Today, we have with us Dr. V.K. Mathews. Dr. V.K. Mathews hails from Kizhakkambalam. Now, Kizhakkambalam is well known to us for three eminent people. One, Dr. V.K. Mathews, a globally relevant, reputed person. Second one, Mr. Sabu Jacob of Kitex Garments. Third, Padma Shri P.R. Srijesh, the hockey player which won the medal in the just concluded Olympics held at Tokyo. One or two sentences about Dr. V.K. Mathews. I think he requires no introduction. After his high school education in Kizhakkambalam, he proceeded to St. Peter's College, Kolancheri, and then he moved to MA College, Kodamangalam College for his mechanical engineering BTech course. Thereafter, he proceeded to IIT Kanpur for his MTech program in aeronautical engineering. Thereafter, he joined Air India, and after a short period of time, he shifted to Emirates, where he served Emirates for more than a decade. In the year 1997, he set up his own IBS group of software services. Now he is a globally relevant person. He is a this company is a #1 provider of IT solutions in the civil aviation industry. Of course, he was awarded MBA degree from the famous Harvard Business School. And taking into consideration of his human services rendered in the field of science, the Hindustan University awarded doctorate honoris causa. Now he is a member of many international agencies, IATA, NASCO, and is a member of the various Government of India and international trade associations. He, during his tenure as the chairman of IBS Group, he won various awards and recognitions. I remember in the year 2014, he came down to St. Thomas College, Pala, to receive the George Thomas Kuttukapalli Award instituted by the Alumni Association for Ethical Businessmen in Kerala. So he's an eloquent speaker, inspiring person. His presence, his company's presence is visible in all the 5 continents. He's having more than 200 clients of international civil aviation industry. He will speak to us on the impact of globalization on the Indian economy with a special reference to foreign direct investment. On behalf of everybody who are present on the online platform, may I extend you, sir, a very respectful welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor.
I welcome our respected Director, Sri Thomas T. John, Executive Chairman, Engineer Pannus George, other members of the governing board, members of the faculty, Professor M.C. Joseph, Associate Director, students and contestants from various parts of India. May God bless you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the warm welcome. Now we take this opportunity to invite our speaker for the day, Mr. V.K. Mathews, founder and executive chairman, IBS Group, member, HPDAC, member advisory committee, Higher Education Council, and member of Board of Directors, ICT Academy, Government of Kerala, for the keynote address on economic liberalization and its impact on Indian economy. Mr. Mathews is an advocate of privatization who believes that government and bureaucracy's competence should bring about reforms in policies, building infrastructure to support those reforms, and bring in significant improvement in health and education in right direction. With over 30 years of work experience, Mathews is a thought leader and a specialist in aviation business. He is a much sought after speaker at various global aviation events, including those organized by IATA, ICAO, and AACO. Mr. Mathews was honored with a doctorate in science by Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science for his achievements and contribution to the aviation industry. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words of introduction. That makes me somewhat nervous. Once again, it's a great pleasure, honor, and privilege for me to be here participating in this national webinar series on the economic liberalization of our country to see whether that served us well or there are shortcomings. Once again, thank you, Professor John, also Director Thomas John, and also Punus George, the people in charge of this institution. So I have got a presentation and I will talk you through the presentation, which will be easier. So let me try to share the presentation. I hope you can see the slideshow. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. I'll go ahead. So this is how I've structured the session today, liberalization journey, India's liberalization journey. We'll talk a little bit about the digital economy because we are slowly but surely sliding into and getting immersed in an economy which is digital in nature. What are the global trends that we see now? And we will also analyze what the India IT outlook situation is. We can also look at what are the opportunities for our country, particularly for most of the people who are attending this seminar, this webinar. India's liberalization journey. I have attempted to present the key milestones in that journey. The liberalization journey of our country, ladies and gentlemen, is intertwined deeply with the history of India post-independence. When we got independence in 1947, we were India was a very poor country. 85% of our people mostly was illiterate. There was a lot of social and economic divide between whatever little that we had and among the population. The region of India in 1700, before the British came, as all of you would know, we had probably 25%, 1/4 of the global GDP was produced by this region. In 1947, when we got independence, the size of our contribution was reduced to 3% or less. And this is the situation that we were in. Our founding fathers, our leaders even had doubts whether India will survive as a nation. And that's where we started. And we are here in 2021 today, and as a very robust economy of the world. Now, the first Prime Minister of India, again, the liberalization journey has a lot to do with the mindset and the beliefs and the thoughts of the leaders, and particularly 4 or 5 leaders who spent a considerable part, like Jawaharlal Nehru, his daughter Indira Gandhi, then Manmohan Singh was there, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and now Mr. Modi as our Prime Minister. Jawaharlal Nehru, who spent almost 17 years as the first Prime Minister of the country, in spite of several shortcomings, he in fact ensured that India continued, thrived, and survived as a democratic, secular, federalistic country. He thought, his belief, his development model, and that has a lot of influence in the liberalization journey. His belief was that the state should take a very dominant role and should act as the chief entrepreneur and the chief financier of business. And that's how, and there's a reason for that. I was just thinking, why is Nehru thinking like that? Because his thought was India was united and we were completely aligned in our struggle for independence. And he thought that the journey after independence will also be equal and similar. Everyone will be aligned. But the journey after independence is very different. This is all about, it is not fighting an external enemy. It's all about everybody progressing themselves. And most of us will look up to us and not the collective good. And that's how human beings are. And that is probably the reason why, when India should have been more liberal in its views of privatization and globalization and everything, we became more and more state-run and state-controlled. In 1950, the Planning Commission was set up, as you would remember, and the first 5-year plan was introduced in 1951, and the focus was on agriculture, because we were importing, and we didn't have money, we were not exporting anything, so it was very difficult for us to actually fulfill our import obligations. In 1956, we had the second 5-year plan where the agenda was, or the focus was more on industrial development. And industrial development then meant public sector. And that also is the beginning of the license route. In 1969, after Nehru, and in between few other prime ministers, we had Mrs. Gandhi in the driving seat, and she has nationalized 14 banks. And that was primarily to force them to lend to the agriculture sector, where the private banks were not willing to do, because they were sure that they will not be able to get the money back. Now, in 1983, first majority rules of the assembly line. That symbolized the rise of a new middle class and consumption. 1986, need for economic reform realized, to shed reliance on foreign aid and loans. In 1991, India sells, and this is where the whole thing actually burst out. India sells 20 tons of gold to actually fulfill its foreign obligations, payment obligations. And that was for $240 million. I was trying to compare that is like the PE investment these days in a company. And India had to physically take the gold from India to UK, and initially it was going to UBS, to the Union Bank of Italy. Then disinvestment initiated in 2000, and I think I should take the name of Sinha during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time. He was the first person to have promoted the PSU disinvestment. Economy expands quickly as interest rates are reduced, high growth, and so 1991 is the beginning of the liberalization. 2007-10, that means up into the 19th to 20th century. So when we come to that, the acquisition spree by Indian companies started. Tata Steel buys Corus, Hindalco buys Novelis, and Tata Motors by Jaguar, and Airtel buys the telecom company in Africa, Saint Africa. In 2016, that means this is the time of Modi government from 2014. The bankruptcy code introduced. That was one of the most important changes that he brought about. One nation, one market, the GST got introduced, even though we had teething trouble, but that's also a great move in the right direction. And in 2018 plus, we become venture and PE capital supported startup country and the startup booms. So this is how the liberalization journey has been. And I would like to give some sort of a context to it. In 1990, upwards is the liberalization. In 1990, if you look at the world, 5.3 billion population, 5,548, it was the per capita GDP. And if you look at the top 5 countries, used to be USA, Japan, Soviet Union, West Germany, and France. And the top 5 countries had just only one city or two, Tokyo and Mumbai in Asia. Whereas when it comes to 2019, that's where we are today. We are 50% bigger in population globally. Our per capita income has increased 3-fold, whereas the GDP has gone 3.8 times. That's because the per capita is less because we also have population growth. And the top 5 countries include 3 countries from Asia: China, Japan, and India. India figures there. That's on a PPP basis, public purchase power parity basis. And top 5 cities by population. Again, economic growth is very closely linked to urbanization. So if you look at the top 5 cities by population, 4 of them are in Asia, 2 of them are in India: Delhi and Mumbai, 2 in China, Beijing and Shanghai. So that's the global perspective during this period, 3.8x growth. But if I take India during this period, just to see the impact of liberalization, our economy grew 9-fold from 1990 to 2019. And if I take 30 years backwards to 1960, Indian GDP was abysmally low. And world GDP, the GDP contribution of India to the world was 1.4%, which is more than doubled. And the per capita income 380 has gone to $2,120. Our exports took an 18-fold growth to 330 billion. IT revenues, it was pretty much non-existent in the 1990, nominally and probably because of TCS there. And IT revenues has grown 1,600 times to 160 billion. And population also 64% growth, from 87 crores to about 137 crores. So this is where, so clearly at a macro level, liberalization has definitely helped us. Well, just to recap, some of you would be knowing, the youngsters and the millennials definitely will not know the state of our economy pre-liberalization. In the telecom sector today, if you tell someone, I want to have a connection, you will get it in a day. In our time, it used to take 2, 3, 4 years to get a telephone connection. We had to wait up to 10 years if we are particular about buying a Chetak scooter. We used to have Doordarshan as one channel, and we used to have All India Radio again as a radio station. We used to have just Air India, and most of the hospitality or the so-called hotels, most of them were government-run, ITDC and TDCs or KTDC hotels. The non-competitive production-constrained economy meant limited choices to consumers and thus reduced consumption. That was a reality. That's where the country was. And this is 1990 outlook. Now, when we talk about liberalization, what does it mean? Liberalization, privatization, globalization, all of that, what it means is encouraging private investment. It's opening up sectors that were not open for private investment, like telecom, like automobile. Promoting exports and allowing imports. Allowing imports, well, what do we import? We import things that we don't have, which can actually help us improve our productivity, help us improve our healthcare, help us improve our lifestyle. Exposing industry to global competition is important for us to achieve excellence. And we have to, again, liberalization means we have to reduce the trade barriers. Once upon a time, before 1990, at the airport, when people come, for me to clear the customs for anybody, it takes 2-3 hours because they will check everything right up to the last pin. And this used to be a highly controlled place. So liberalization is basically to promote excellence that would benefit citizens. Now, what does privatization help to achieve? I just want to take the case of Air India. All of you know, if I take 2010 to 2020, all of that bars that you can see there are the losses which Air India make each year in crores. 5,000 to 9,000 crores of rupees is the loss that Air India makes. In 10 years, 70,000 crores of losses. In spite of 30,000 capitalization, it has an accumulated debt of 50,000 crores. And when it comes to the performance, the on-time performance or the punctuality, on-time performance in 2019, even when this was not affected, it was only 58.9%. That means 40% of the flights will not depart on time for many reasons. Of course, declining market share, and Air India was consistently ordered as the traveler's last choice. Well, this is on the one side, 70,000 crores in 10 years. We were, as a country, as the citizens of India, we were very upset about the fact that Kingfisher founder Vijay Mallya has caused 7,000 crores of debt to a consortium of bankers. I don't want to go into the merits of the case, whether it was misappropriation, misrepresentation of facts, but the damage that Kingfisher has done to the country in terms of not paying the debt was 7,000 crores. In just 10 years itself, Air India's contribution to the country's debt, to the debt burden, is 70,000 crores. And of course, this is run by government, and the CEO of Air India is a bureaucrat. So we are, as a country, we are so upset about one, and we must be equally upset, if not more upset. It's just that we think because it's a PSU, we own it, and therefore it's okay. But that's not okay. So the key benefits of privatization in this context is makes companies and sectors more efficient, because in a private company, if you don't have money to pay, you go to jail. You may go to jail, some may not go. Whereas in a public sector undertaking, if they don't pay their bills, nothing happens. Enables government to recycle assets, and cash generated from the disinvestments can be invested where it's most needed. You know, public health, public education, basic education, so many areas, government need more investment, more money. And there are areas where only government will be able to invest in. Relieves government from the debt burdens and increase jobs in job created as industry grows and new players enter. And of course, better quality service, better value for money, lower cost to the consumer. Now, impact of privatization in India today. I've just taken it sectorally, not each PSU. Telecom sector. Today we have 1.17 billion active connections, and it takes less than a day to get a cell connection. And this is not about the ease of getting connection. This is a key driver of digitization in India, which again is something which drives efficiency, innovation. Today, if you look at the multitude of options for consumers to choose from when it comes to automotive industry, we used to have 2 cars, Premier Padmini and Ambassador. Today, we have a lot of options. I'm not saying that we should have a lot of cars on the road, but at least these cars have better emissions. I'm not saying they're green and we should go green, hydrogen economy, all of that is there. But still, this and one of the largest 4-wheeler and 2-wheeler markets in the world, India has become. Media, rich ecosystem of 800 plus TV channels plus 370 plus radio stations available. I'm not saying that all of that is great for us, but we do have the options and the choices. And aviation, 10 plus airlines serving the 3rd largest aviation market in the world. Indian civil aviation has huge potential because we are a country of 1,350 or 1,400 million people. Not even 50 million people have stepped inside an aircraft. Even though we have 300 million people journeys, most of them are repeat journeys. So the potential is very, very high. Of course, we do have challenges, but the potential is very high. And to unleash the potential, we need to have investment. We need to have people who are competent to run airlines, not like people, Air India. And during this period, during the liberalization period, 1990 to 2020, foreign direct investment in financial markets, this is clearly another indication of how much has it helped. Since 2000, FDI inflow has grown 51 billion. You can see the chart there. In 1990, nobody looked at India. Even in 1993, we hardly had any investments. And that's the reason why we have significant problems on the balance of payments. We have obviously trade deficit because we have to import more than we export in the normal course because oil import is the biggest thing. And we hardly used to export anything. And if you look at the markets, which again indicates how capital is going to places where it can contribute to growth. It has grown 55 folds. BSE Sensex, 40-year trend line. It has grown by 55 folds. All of this is very, very, very positive. And ladies and gentlemen, why this is positive is, and what is ticking for India? It is not our bureaucracy, like any other bureaucracy in a developing world, has its own challenges. We do have our own challenges. Inefficient bureaucracy, inadequate infrastructure, we have got limited resources, correct? All kinds of issues we do have. But what makes India different and what is making our country great is the enterprising mindset of the people. And how do we actually unleash that potential? And what are the shackles we still do have, which we should understand? Is the real question for us. Now, so that was the first part. And whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, we are, as I said at the beginning, slipping into an economy which can be called the digital economy. I have a few slides. It's quite important for us to have a perspective of that. Digital economy and an overview. The size of digital economy today as a percentage contribution is about 14.5%. This is as per the UN Digital Economy report, which was produced in 2019, actually the latter part of 2019. And just to give you a comparison, when Professor John was introducing me, said we specialize in travel, transportation, and logistics in travel sector. The contribution of travel, which is direct, indirect, and induced, the contribution of that to the global economy in 2020 or 2019, which is the right figure because 2020, because of COVID, is a bit distorted. 2019 is about 10%. Ladies and gentlemen, travel dates back to the beginning of humanity. It is only 10%. The digital economy, as we understand, is only from 2007. That's when the first iPhone came out. And that's already 14.5. And just to give you some sort of, this is how I will, give an overview of the digital economy. It is driven by the ability to collect, analyze, and use massive amount of digital data. And that's what drives the digital economy. It also leads to, as you would know, leads to enormous wealth creation in record time. You now hear about trillion-dollar companies and people who have wealth equivalent of hundreds of billions. But the problem will lead to enormous wealth creation in record time, rapid times, but highly concentrated in the hands of very few countries, companies, and more so individuals. Of course, this is therefore creating problems for the regulators and the jurisdictions when it comes to governance of this. And digital economy is still continuing to evolve at breakneck speed. The internet traffic growth, the IP traffic growth, which was 1 megabytes per second, is in 2019 was about 150 terabytes per second. That's a growth of about 150 crores or something, 15 crores or folds. And clearly the digital economy creates a very powerful data value chain, driven by firms collecting and analyzing data to create digital intelligence and monetize that intelligence through commercial use. So that's about the digital economy. And what the platformization is the single most powerful driver of digital economy. There are two types of platforms. Why am I saying that? Because if you take world's top 8 companies use platform-based business models, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Uber, Airbnb, Alibaba, whatever. There are two types of platforms. One is transaction platforms like Amazon, and the other one is innovation platforms, which creates an environment to produce people to collaborate and innovate, such as Linux, such as iOS, such as Android. Access to the entire data actions, interactions, and behavior of users is the digital platform's greatest advantage. You can see why Amazon is becoming powerful, why Tencent is becoming very powerful, why Ichiba is becoming very powerful, because they connect millions of producers with billions of consumers. I will actually touch base this aspect as we go along. And I'm talking about digital economy, and I'm talking about digital economy, which is about 15% of the global economy, and that's where we live today, and that is accelerating as well. And ladies and gentlemen, you remember, we always used to talk about the economic divide, the north-south divide. What does it mean? What it means is the developed northern hemisphere countries like the Americas and the Europe and Japan, and the developing or underdeveloped countries in the southern hemisphere like Asia and Africa. And this used to be a major discussion in UN about the economic divide, the north-south divide, the famous or infamous. The digital economy does not display the traditional north-south divide. Almost entirely between two countries, US and China. The divide is entirely between these two countries. And we can highlight this. 75% of all blockchain patents belong to these two countries. 50% of the global IoT spending and 75% of world's public cloud market and 90% of the market cap of digital economy belongs to companies which are situated in these two countries. I put there Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Tencent, Alibaba, all of them. And now we can understand the trade frictions between these two countries reflect the quest for these countries for global dominance on these frontier technologies. That's an important point to note. So what did I say about the digital economy? So what it means to today's business context. The functioning of economies, countries, the functioning of organizations, companies, and the functioning of citizens, individuals, personally and collectively, are significantly changing. And how is it changing? The way we produce is changing. 3D printing, by 3D printing, what I mean is geographically distributed, white labeled, electronically enabled manufacturing is what 3D printing is. And 3D automated manufacturing, the way we produce is changing. The way we distribute in a personalized and direct manner, directly to consumer. The way we consume on demand, the way we want it, when we want it. We make an order on Swiggy or Zomato, and they bring the food. Our next read is in next minute, and next movie is probably in 1 minute. The way we transact, mostly real time, very efficient, minimal transaction time. And the way we operate, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, all of this. Everything is changing. The way we produce, distribute, consume, transact, and operate is changing. In this new world, ladies and gentlemen, leaders and decision makers should reset their intuitions. Who would have thought the value of a digital platform like WhatsApp is like what it is today? While this new digital economy and new era is deeply unsettling, it also presents great opportunities. The topic that we talk about is liberalization, Boon or Bane, and where should we go from where we are is the context. So I was talking about the liberalization journey, the benefits, the digital economy. And let me now talk a little bit about what are the mega trends that we see in the world when we sit and watch. There are three major trends. Let me explain. The first one, personalization, is a big trend. I have another slide, I'll explain. To deliver what the customer needs than what the enterprise has. So which means that if I have to deliver to the customer what he wants, I should know who he is and I should know his requirements. And why personalization? People will buy if it is easy to buy. People will, and that's a very loaded statement, because I will buy if you're selling me what I want to buy. And if you have to then do that, you should know what my needs are, as I said. The second point is disintermediation, direct to consumer, biggest trend, direct to consumer. So Amazon, direct to consumer, is an intermediary, still direct to consumer. Deliver products and services directly online to the consumer, bypassing non-value adding intermediaries. Think of what is going to happen in the retail outlets and what is the future of retail. Virtualization, all of this is enabled by technology. Virtualization means I am a brand, assuming I have an airline, but I am an airline brand. I am British Airways, or I am IAG, International Airline Group, or I am Lufthansa. I have my airline seat, but a passenger, a customer needs much more than that. He needs a hotel, he needs a car, he needs short tickets, he needs excursions, all of this. Well, regardless of whether I operate or not, I am now able to provide him everything that he wants, packaged and priced and personalized in a manner that he is ready to consume. So that means provide unconstrained access to the enterprise owned or our affiliates and partners' products and services with all its attributes to the consumer. In other words, I create, or technology allows us to create a world which is vertically separated. One, people who produce, and the other world of consumers and the brands which sit in between, who will be actually managing the customers, fulfilling their requirements. And all of this to amplify the consumption behavior so that as a world, we are able to show progress. Ladies and gentlemen, every day, we are supposed to consume more than the previous day. Then only we are thought to be progressive. GDP growth, we all really want to And if the government is not driving GDP growth, we are upset. Companies that are not growing, we are upset, meaning that we have to increase our consumption. I don't know, we have to really look at whether the mother nature likes it, but that's a different discussion. But how to amplify consumption through personalization, through disintermediation, through virtualization. Yeah? I have one slide specifically on personalization. It is the most important change in business and life that we see today. Today, we are able to connect millions of producers with billions of consumers directly. Yeah. And the next one is, how do I make that as a personal connection, and how can I personalize my services? COVID-19 has accelerated the drive and demand for personalization. Personalization in this context means delivering products, services, experiences, and information tuned to the needs of and wants of the customers. It is not like what you dump whatever that you have on them. No, you actually know who he is and deliver what he wants. It will enhance our lives. It will increase the engagement, mutual, and make behavioral changes. Personalization and providing a unique customer experience has become a critical business success factor for all businesses and industry sectors. This is a topic that in my organization, we speak day in, day out. I'll tell you how this is going to actually change. Applying personalization, say in education, saying this is an education. When we think of education, we used to think of the brick and mortar university campuses, the great campuses, the great colleges, but now no borders. We have seen, I'm not saying that's the greatest thing, but we have seen people being able to study from remote. Classroom lectures have given way to virtual delivery. And with all of the capabilities, personalization capabilities, we can even have lectures far more effective. Degree and diploma, like for instance, I do my 10, I do my 12, then I go to an engineering college, I get a degree, and I have to get a degree, and then I move on. So instead of that degree and diploma to micro credentials, I just want to do a 3 months course in journalism, and that course will be recognized because it is given by this university. They have made sure that this has this content, this is how it's evaluated. In other words, what we are saying, personalization in education will shift from supply focus to demand focus. That's why I've written there, it is no longer just anywhere, anytime. It is anything, anywhere, and now. That's what personalization and its impact. So that leads to my two sessions, India IT situation. There was an ASCOM session with the new IT minister. So we have the latest information about where we stand. The Indian IT sector, where we are today, and it is the next 5-10 years is going to be the best time for the Indian IT sector. And you will see the demand for IT talent and qualified people coming from the universities or the graduating students. There is an intensification, and the demand will intensify. The industry size is 190 billion as of 2021, 2020. IT industry is employing about 4.5 million people directly. It is 8% of the country's GDP. And it has 50% share of the FDI, foreign direct investments. And we have in the country about 12,500 startups and counting. Last year, we had about 11.8 billion venture capitalists and PE investments into startups and medium companies. And 1,000 plus global delivery centers have been established by our companies, Indian IT companies. And can you imagine 52% of the entire exports of the country is coming from IT, 52%, which is actually about the total exports of the country is about 330 billion, sorry. Now, what's the outlook? The outlook is, just look at that 2015, 20, 25 on the left side of the slide, you can see. 2015 to 20, we had a 7.5% per annum growth, CAGR. We were 132, we reached 190. The expectation is that we will grow much faster, 10 to 12% per annum from 2020 to 2025. We will reach 300 to 350 billion. And this would create enormous amount of demand for engineering, so IT talent, meaning that a lot of people graduating will find much more easy jobs in the coming 5 years than in the past 5 years. The areas where the expansion, the digital expansion takes place, where the tech spend will be cloud services, AI, cyber security, customer experience, and IoT. That's where we would see more and more of the digital spend going. The traditional legacy spend is going to come down, as you can see there. So that digital part is increasing. It was 10% in 2015, is going to be about 55 to 60% by 2025. So that's great future, yeah. And the India opportunity part. And with that, I will close my formal session and wait for the questions from the audience. The India opportunity. So this is a slide which I've prepared for one of IBS, my own address to the IBS community worldwide. The work in the new normal. The first statement, 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 hasn't even been invented as yet. This is from the Global Institute of Future. It is there. This is a statement from them. 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 hasn't even been invented as yet. That means the future of job is changing so rapidly. Actually, there are three broad trends that will reshape the work after the pandemic. Most of you know. Remote working, work from home, 20 to 25% of the remote working in advanced economy. Virtual meetings to continue, though less intensely. So that means all of the companies are expecting that when we finally open the offices post-COVID, we will still have some percentage of the people working from home. So companies, while they encourage people to come to work because it helps for collaboration, interaction, all of those, but companies will follow work from anywhere kind of a concept, at least in terms of enabling the infrastructure. That's what they're going to do. Digitization is going to be a major factor. This is a broad trend. About 2 to 5x growth in e-commerce. You have seen during the last 1.5 years how much the digitization influence. For example, online deliveries have grown by at least by about 20, 30 times during this period. Telemedicine, virtual education, all of those. Automation, uptick in use of robotics, faster adoption of AI, all of that is going to take place. Now, occupational transitions. We expect about 100 million job shifts predicted in 8 countries, including India. Mix of occupations to shift with a little wage growth in low wage conditions. Yeah, this shift is with little wage growth. So degrowth areas where the jobs are going to shrink, the number of jobs, office support, understandably, because we will see more and more people working from home. Customer service and sales, because direct to consumer, digitally enabled personalized retailing, that's right. Food services, because a lot of people will have online deliveries, production and repair, and growth areas, health aides, health professionals, STEM, workers, that is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that's going to go up. That means the world is looking for more people with STEM skills and transportation. One or two more slides from my prepared speech. So trends influencing the IT industry outlook. One, this is something you must be seeing and hearing. The barriers to cross-border trades, the protectionist tendencies, China, America, Germany, France, extreme right-wing tendencies, emergence of regional superpower economies and specialists, like for example China, could disrupt flow of data and insight and hamper global competition and drives innovation. We are seeing more and more protectionism, more and more privacy issues, more and more, because of course all of this is for humanity and progress. People believe that a future war is not going to be physical, but it can be digital. You can bring a country on its knees by attacking them digitally. So therefore, nations are becoming more and more suspicious. That's why governments will play a larger role in regulating and legislating digital services, and rightly so. This will present new opportunities, huge amount of money available in that area, but at the same time for the industry, it will also impose burdens. Investments in innovation will increasingly shift from west to east, because if you look at all of the big cities, all of the things that are happening more and more in Asia, that's where the population mass is. I've mentioned this, the future of work will continue to change rapidly, because the work that existed 12, 30 years back, they don't exist now. And the work that exists now will not exist in 10 years or 5 years from now. This presents new challenges to the employers, which would require technology solutions, which therefore is an opportunity for the industry. D2C, we used to once upon a say B2C. I changed it to D2C, meaning direct to consumer. This is directly from the brand to consumer, not from the retailer to the consumer. But see, the D2C business models will drive about 30–40% of the sales across major industries, driving consumer behavior changes and disrupting the current slow-moving brick-and-mortar incumbents. We'll see that play getting shifted. So these are some of the trends, and this is also giving an opportunity for the IT industry, the technology sector. And what is our opportunity in this? The enterprise technology intensity to amplify to 5% of revenues. You know what it means? If a company is making $1 billion, 5% of that, that's about $50 million, will be available for technology. In other words, companies will invest more and more in technology up to 5%, creating a global addressable market of over $1 trillion. We talked about D2C, direct to consumer business models will account for about 30–40, I said that in the previous slide, global revenues, and which would mean an added 150–200 billion additional technology spend itself. Cloud AI, cyber, I mentioned the security spend will accelerate and will present for the Indian IT industry about 600–700 billion opportunity, the addressable market. And it remains a fact that 50% of the future's technology spend will be influenced by D2C and SaaS providers. They will influence because much of the business is going to be D2C. And there's an opportunity too. And again, D2C, even in the educational sector, directly to the students. Yeah. Demand for next generation tech talent will intensify. We are seeing it. The attrition has skyrocketed in our country. Yeah, it's becoming, and a lot of companies are establishing alternate sourcing centers in Eastern Europe, in Brazil, in South America, and all places. That's really happening. And to my next slide. So India's digital future, again, I talked about it. Tech services, SaaS is going to be 1 trillion market value, if you can see it. And e-commerce is 1.5 trillion, 25 million jobs in that area. Digital payments, 8 billion annual transactions by 2025, which is pretty much anybody, if you really take people above the age of 12, that probably is about 8 transactions per citizen. And with one more slide, and that's the very last slide. Economic liberalization. So we were talking everything in the context of economic liberalization, what India should do. What I see as the next frontier, and I've actually given it to India Broad News yesterday, which they published as an article. So this is what I feel, that we have to transform and change the role of government in business and industry. We have to change the government's role too. See, government should come out of providing services directly. That's what I mean. Government will enact laws and create rules and regulations, but it's implementation and effectuation to be done by the private sector. Government will facilitate the provision of services, but will not directly run and operate such services. We talk about privatizing a PSU. A PSU is nothing compared to the government itself. Services will be done by companies that have expertise in business process management. For example, take the case. We have a demonstrable case in point. TCS providing passport services. If all of the approvals to start a business and also the ongoing compliance approvals, whether it is environment, pollution, or whatever, let the government enact the laws, but its implementation and ongoing verification, all of that is done by the private sector with the help of technology, then we will see a huge difference. All of the talk about ease of doing business in India is because government is involved in the provision of services. And even in the best of economies, governments are not well positioned to provide customer experience, customer service. And therefore, like all the developed world have done, government-owned, government-operated, giving way to government-owned, private operator or contractor operated. So redefining or transforming the role of government as a business facilitation. They create the rules, they own the regulations, but they will not be the people who will be implementing it. It is one and the same. The people who work are exactly the same. Government will still make the same amount of money. They will be able to redeploy the resources in areas where only government can work. So that liberalization aspect. So if there is one single thing that the country, the state can do is this, to change that role from the operator to a facilitator. That's a lot of difference. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my last slide. So I am now available to you guys in case if there are any questions. Thank you. Yes, I'm back.
Thank you, sir. I express our utmost gratitude to you, sir, for sharing with us your valuable insights. It was delightful to listen to you, as these moments were truly an investment from which we shall benefit a lot. We shall now move on to the question and answer session. We have received quite a few questions, which we shall be addressing one at a time. Sir, the first question which we have received, do you think privatization leads to unhealthy, unethical competition?
I don't think so. At least we don't have any cases in point. For example, if you take the aviation sector, if you take the telecom sector, if you take the hospitality sector, I do not believe that. Of course, we must have the regulations and the regulators, but I don't think it will create unethical, unhealthy competition. Because again, there may be a lot of people coming in. Then finally, what happens is, why should I be in this business? Is the question. How do I matter? Not everybody can go and create a business, and people should be able to have a value proposition. They should look at what strength that they have. But that's how it is. I don't think it will. Personally, I don't think it will.
Thank you, sir. One of our participants asked, as the #1 IT solution provider in the aviation industry, what is your perspective on the future of Air India?
I did talk about it. Air India, we talked about this. I had one slide on that. What it means is that Air India, as an airline, is doing very, very poorly economically, customer service wise, in all respects, because they have been making huge amount of losses. So Air India, as a public sector company, if it continues, it will continue as a loss-making company, and it will continue as the least preferred airline, as the travelers and the last choice airline. So government has plans for Air India to privatize it. It is not very little to do with the employees. It is more to do with the setup. In a public sector undertaking, they have a lot of limitations. They cannot compete like a private sector company can compete. They will not be cannot be as responsive. They have to comply with all of the bureaucracy of the government, and that's not going to be. So what is going to happen to Air India? I hope it happens this time, is that it will get privatized. And if it is getting privatized, it is a good thing for Air India, its employees, and for the country. There were 2 attempts in the past because there was no takers, because the government has put conditions which private parties cannot actually comply with and make a business out of. So the future of Air India, if at all it has any future, is if it gets divested, like what the government is planning to do.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, despite opening up the economy, FDIs are not coming to India unlike China. What can be the reason?
Of course, as we have seen, we have significant growth in FDI from 0 to 55 billion last year. We will be able to unleash much more if we can improve the ease of doing business in the country. We still do have a lot of hurdles. As I said, India's success has a lot to do with the enterprising, thriving mindset of the people, and we have to enable them. So if we reduce the ease of doing business, for example, as an example, we hear a lot of people complaining about coming to invest in Kerala, and the hurdles of investing in Kerala, getting the approvals and the compliance approvals and the ongoing approvals. And how do we make it better? That's what I was actually talking about, that case. And that's what my recommendation is. Let the government create all the regulations, which should be followed. But the implementation, effectuation of those regulations, let it be done by private sector. As I can quote as an example. One of my board members, who is the current chairman of the largest insurance company in the world, one of the largest insurance companies in the world, and he was of the view that how can in India be having so much of difficulty of doing business when India is actually providing the business process support for the most complex businesses in the world. He was referring to a TCS or Infosys processing the claims of AIG, American Insurance. If that is the case, why can't they give approvals, and why can't they process the applications? Why can't they do the compliances? Why is it that the government does it? For the government and the government employee, every requirement of a citizen is additional work with no marginal extra benefit. So whereas for a private sector company like TCS, when they issue a passport or do an improvement, it is adding to their revenue. So if we are able to improve the ease of doing business, business will thrive in our country because we have such an enterprising group of people in the country. So if you do that, we will have the investments coming into India.
Thank you, sir. We shall be closing the question and answer session with this last question. Privatization may lead to formation of cartel. Can you state your opinion on this?
Oh, can you repeat the question, please? Can you please repeat the question?
Privatization may lead to formation of cartel. Can you state your opinion on this?
Well, free markets and privatization can also create difficulties. And so when we are more and more privatized, when we are more and more liberalized, we also should make sure that we have the right regulations and we are able to implement the regulations properly. And this is something which the developed world has done very effectively in the past. So I think it is a fear that we have today. If you look at our country, because of privatization, did we gain or did we lose? And that's why I was actually talking about all of the sectors where we liberalized and we opened to private sector, they have done very well. I will tell you another example. Government of India, during the previous UPA time, went on privatization of airports. When you now come to the country and come to an airport like Bombay or Delhi, as an Indian, you will be immensely proud. How beautiful that. These airports have won as the #1 awards in the world, as the best customer service experience airports in the world. That means we as Indians, we will be able to do and create world-class enterprises. But if you recall the Palam Airport and the Sahar Airport, when it was run by Airport Authority of India, it was in absolute shambles. So privatization has only helped us. We are still not fully confident of how it is going to evolve, and that's the reason why we stand in the way of privatization. I think privatization will help the country for sure.
Thank you, sir, for patiently answering all the queries. We really hope that this question and answer session benefited all the participants. May I now invite Professor M.C. Joseph, Associate Director, Saintgits College of Applied Sciences, to share the concluding remarks.
Thank you.
Respected Dr. V.K. Mathews, we are really proud to have you as the chief speaker of today's webinar on India's economic reforms, a boon or bane. We express our sincere thanks for joining us to lead the webinar. Dr. V.K. Mathews is an entrepreneur and the founder chairman of IBS Software Services. He is regarded as the thought leader of the global aviation industry. He has been the speaker of many national and international seminars and conferences. Dr. V.K. is a BTech holder in mechanical engineering and did his aeronautical engineering from IIT Kanpur and completed executive management program from Harvard University, USA. He started his career as a faculty member in Military College of Indian Army. And 1 year after, he joined Air India as system analyst. And thereafter, he became the general manager of Emirates. And in 1997, IBS was started. He received many awards and honors, including Businessman of the Year Award, IT Man of the Year Award, Enterprise Excellence Award, and many others. He is the member of many government and non-government bodies and organizations, like the chairman of GTEC, chairman of Kerala State Council of CII, governing council member of Technopark, etc., etc. He is the man who initiated the setting up of Divine Children's Home, Trivandrum, meant for destitute children. Sir, we are really enriched, encouraged, and impressed by your talk. I still remember your visit to the Saintgits College of Applied Sciences during the inauguration of our first building by then Chief Minister of Kerala, Sri Ummen Chandi. In your speech, you talked about in detail about the liberalization journey, digital economy, global mega trends, India IT situation, and the India opportunity. We express our sincere thanks to you from the depth of our hearts. You have inspired us with your eloquent speech and impressed us with your oratory. We wish God's grace and blessings on IBS and its founder. Once again, expressing our thanks to you and all our dear participants, I remain. May God bless us all. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. As part of webinar series, along with knowledge sharing sessions, a virtual national level elocution competition for students has also been organized on each day of the series. The prizes of the competition are sponsored by South Indian Bank. With immense pleasure, we announce the winner for the day 4. It is none other than Mr. Noel Tharagan Ranjit, Federal Institute of Science and Technology. Please note that the final session of the series is on 17th August from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It will be chaired by Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Montek Singh Alwalia, economist and former Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission, Government of India. He shall be sharing his knowledge on economic reforms and balance of payment during the session. We have now come to the end of 5th day of National Webinar Series, India's Economic Reforms, a Boon or Bane. On behalf of Saintgits College of Applied Sciences, I take this moment sincerely thank each and every one who have graced this occasion with their presence, and also wish all the participants enriching days of knowledge sharing and learning in the upcoming days. Thank you all for joining us here. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are signing off. Let me sign off. Thank you.